Hi, good evening, all. In this session, we are going to be discussing something about the four P's, right? Four P's, something that we've seen or something that we would have heard about in other places in business, particularly in marketing, right? I think, again, I recently, brushed on this when I was watching a recent episode on TV, right? Again, four P's is something that is being talked about in mostly in marketing, right? In our business, like if we can just connect this, right? And again, our business is not just specifically to these four P's, but if we can just form certain kind of rules around this, if we can just connect these four P's with that kind of a business that we are in, right? It could just give us that that mental model where we could visualize this in a manner which is easy to remember, right? Four P's. I'd say there could be a lot, right? But what we would focus here, let's say the first one being, again, easy to guess, right? Psychology plays a major role, as we all know that, right? Particularly positive psychology. Very important for us to be presenting ourselves positive in a zero sum game, right? So we would focus on this as well, right? First up, we'll just kind of write down all these four P's here, right? First one being this, and the next P, right, is perception. Right, again we'll talk about this as well, right? How do we view the world, or what are our thoughts about certain things, and how much of what we think is true or real, right? It's all about that perception that we have, because we see this world through a filter, and we see this world through what we think is what it is, right? So that is our filter that we have, and I would say we know about 33%, right? And rest, that is what our perception is, and what is the truth and what holds for long periods of time is something that we would always figure out sometime in the future. But at this moment, at this present time, all that we see is perception, or our standpoint, and based on our experiences, based on our influences, based on what we get influenced about, also holds a big part on how we perceive things, how we perceive risk, how we perceive profits, how we perceive drawdowns, and all of that. So perception is one of those things that we need to master, right? So these four P's are the P's that we need to master. That's what we are discussing here, right? And probably the next one, we'll put it down. In this particular business, right? No matter in any other competitive businesses, the payoff is random, right? And the payoff is asymmetrical, right? It is highly skewed towards the top performers, right? So now, in a way, the Zepf law says that the person who's at the top, out of 10, if you say the top one, right? The first prize winner would be making 10 times more than the 10th price, right? So that means the room for error is very low, right? So right now we've in the recent past we've seen Argentina beating France in the final, right? So to the most part, right, to the most part of the World Cup, or even some years before that, right, everything else was discounted when a winner was chosen, right? It was just about that last, what is that called, the kickoff of that 5 goals decided who's the best in the world, right? The best in the world gets 2 times more glory or more money or more anything else that you can say than the person who's in the second, right? The second did everything right, almost right, till the end, but the payoff is asymmetrical, right? The winner gets all the glory, right? They're going to be called the winners or the champions for the next 4 years, or probably this is also etched in the history as well, right? So the reward is always asymmetrical, right? So, in particularly in our case, particularly we talk about trend following and buying, or any kind of systems, even to an extent what we do mostly as option selling systems, all of it, for the people who are doing it for the longest time with a lot of persistence, are going to be paid off hugely, right? And the payoff is going to be there, right? It's about this, right? The same people, right? The same person trading the exact same system, two different people trading the exact same system, exact same rules, would have totally different outcomes, right? Totally different outcomes based on how long they are doing it, right? Somebody who's doing it for 13 days, right? Seeing that it's not a system that is worth doing, it's not something that is worth doing because of the payoff is not that great, or they're just too tired or too bored of the non-performance or the drawdowns and whatnot, right? And again, this same system, same rules, if a person is doing for 19 days, things could change in that period, right? It could just be 15 days or 16 days. He could see a drastically different kind of result, right? And also that some person started in the month of May, or some person started in the month of April, could see different result. Again, it's totally based on that, right? And the payoff here in our business, right, is connected to law of averages, where the more time that we're going to be giving it, right, how much time, how much is more, is always time. Always this is you understand time as a factor in our success here, and it is always painstakingly long enough, right? If the amount of time is not giving us pain, that means it's not enough, right? We need to be go through more of pain to see that asymmetrical payoff, right? So all about payoffs. Payoffs is all about this, right? There's no free lunch at all, right? If there is free lunch, then it'll be easy for everybody to be doing this, right? This is an exclusive lunch, right? There is a gatekeeper, right? There is a filter, right? But the only thing that we need to pass through all of this is time, right? Time, and then sticking to the base, right? Sticking to the rules and sticking to the initial conditions and holding the ground for longest period. But holding the ground for longest period requires some sort of a trust in the system, right? And the confidence, and all of this would not just come from a loosely built or highly overfitted or highly leveraged systems, right? So this is where everything boils down to developing systems based on a sound logic, a sound money management principle, right? All of this, when we put together, right? So all that we need is to persevere for a long time, right? Build a positive psychology, right? And have a perception about the systems in a more data-driven way rather than the way of influenced by others, right? So perception is the way we can, define this, or how it actually fits in our ideal world is, somebody might be thinking that, systems are everything, right? Systems are going to be deciding your quantum of success in trading. The systems and the set of rules, or, might be discretionary or system, rule-based mechanical systems, right? But after a point, right, so it does not make sense, right? Systems can just take you from point A to point C, point D. And after that, there are a lot of other things that we need to develop for that. Of course, system as a base, and the other edge that we would need to develop, right? And at some point, people would be thinking that, risk management is everything, right? Right now, you can see that, many people tell that, out in the world, that, risk management is all, right? Or some people tell strategy is all, systems is all, right? That is their perception, or that is where they are at that curve, right? At that point in their journey, they are at a particular point where they think risk is all, right? Where they think risk is all, and there would be some point where they might think diversification is all, right? But that is just a perception, right? That is just a perception that we have at that time, and because of certain things that have happened in the recent past, or maybe because of account size growing to a higher, that's the reason, if you've noticed, right, in the recent 4 months, in any session or anywhere we meet, we have meetups, anywhere I've been focusing more on risk management and reducing the overnight positions, because I myself is I myself is at a stage where this is going to be more important for me, right? So these perceptions would change, right? What we think right today, or what we believe is the truth of the world today, has only 50% chance of being it being true or it being right, right? So it's just always 50-50, right? In terms of probability, and how much of probability is that it's going to be true from 4 years from now, maybe another 50%, right? So it's almost never exceeds 33%. Our perception is almost that, right? So we do not need to think much about what we think, right? We just need to trust the system mostly. And if not, right, the worst thing that can happen is others' perception affecting our decision making, right? When you open up yourself to Twitter and a lot of other places, right, people would come up with their own perception, and they think that is the ultimatum, right? That is the truth, and there's nothing beyond that. And particularly when those people are accomplished, right? Always the survivorship bias, right? If those people are accomplished and they are at a certain curve, and they are at a certain learning curve, or at some point in their journey, which could ultimately not something that is relatable to where you are, and their perception need not match yours, or their perception, it could just be a perception which again has an odds of 70% of not being applicable to you, right? So whatever we decide, whatever we think, whatever we hear, we think that it has an odds of just 33%, right? It's just that if we focus on the basics, if we focus on the bigger things, right, we do not really need to sweat the little things, right? All these perceptions, all of this is something that we would always connect in the future. The dots would always be connected, right? So we do not need to worry too much about that. A lot of noise would add and mix into the system, and again adding to more randomness in our decision making, which is what we set, right? We just got started, we set sail not to let any of these noise affect our decision making, right? So perception, our own perceptions, right? We know how much of weightage we need to give to it, and others' perceptions, we just build a wall around, right? And of course, it could be true, it could be false, right? It could be sometimes, different people, different journeys, right? And it might not even be relevant at all to you at this point, or it might not be relevant at all after a certain point, right? So in this, again, this unique business, we need to have these filters and these walls to cut out the noise, right? And again, the last P would be, again, something that we always discuss, right? How can we have this competitive advantage to be on our side for the longest period, right? Everlasting, right? So let's say perennial, right? We might need to check the spelling here, but again, yes, this is the spelling, right? But you get the point, right? Where we have a competitive advantage that lasts for the longest time as our business lasts, right? Where it means like almost infinity, right? Infinite game that we play, right? The perennial edge, the edge that we have, the edge that we need to build, the edge that we would discover in the future, right? At this point, in all our capacity, all our knowledge, putting together all the things that we know from experience, using common sense, using logic, right? The edge that you build, right, could not be as effective in the next 5 years, right? Because in the process you might also add something new, right? And you would also figure out something, right? The dots would be connected, right? And all of this, right, when put together, and that is how a competitive advantage survives, right? That's how businesses thrive, right? We're not here just to survive, and we need to thrive. In order for us to thrive, we would open ourselves to the idea of we sharpening our edge in the future, right? We would need to do that, or we would figure out ways to do that, right? The only way that we would figure out, or only way that we would know that we would be able to do is by doing it, right? Just by surviving, right? By being around for the next 3 years would mean that we would have seen some more things along the way, right? Something that we haven't seen in the past 3 years or 4 years. Something new might crop up, something, some changes might be regulatory or something else in the structure of the market or whatever it might be, right? Something that we would always figure out in the future. And that is something that we need to believe in, right? If we are going to be in this business and if we are going to be, always we look at 15 years and 14 years from now, right? And as long as theta decay, right? If we are going to be totally dependent on that theta decay, right? Theta decay is something that if that can be removed from the market, it most probably cannot be, right? As long as option prices exist, as long as they are liquid, there is some amount of time decay that is going to be there in the extrinsic value of these options, right? So that is a perennial edge, right? So that is something that cannot be removed. If that time value can be removed, or if the time value is not going to be present, right? Of course, it's a theoretical value, right? What if it's not going to be there in options? That means you would find your edge in option buying, right? If there is no extrinsic value, option buying could be a better exercise, right? So that is how we would develop our edge, right? But again, we do not see that happening at all, right? There could not be any time in the future where the small players are going to be winning, right? The long straddlers, or if you're going to be making long straddles and you're going to be winning every expiry, or you're going to be winning in any kind of events, right? Our market cannot, the zero sum game cannot be placed, placed where the small players could win. Anybody with 15,000 could be potentially be making a lot more money if the element of theta or the element of volatility, the entire thing, if it is not going to be there in options, right? Theoretically, it cannot be removed. So that is sort of a perennial edge, right? So now, the only thing is that it's almost like you're shorting an instrument or a security that is in a perennial downtrend, right? So extrinsic value is in a perennial downtrend, and if we can figure out a way where you can get the sort of an edge where you can short this, right? This security, this option, or this thing that is always perennial downtrend where the extrinsic value has to go to zero at the time of expiry. So it is in a perennial downtrend, start of the contract to the expiry, and then the new expiry starts again, it goes in a downtrend. It's in a downtrend throughout, right? So of course there is going to be some volatility and all that is going to be giving you a spike, but downtrend is, it does not close where it started, right? It does not close where it started. It has to close at zero, the extrinsic value, right? So if we are going to be playing with that, and if we can, know that this edge cannot be totally removed from the market, where our rules could change, right? We're not telling that, the same system is going to be working same effectively for the next 20 years, right? But this idea is going to be the same, right? We could just change the logistics, we could just change the modalities, the entries, the exits and all that, but the idea of capturing this, if we can just build a solid logic around this, and if we can build systems, if we can build rules, if we can just come up with certain things, right, which again would evolve as well, right? So the competitive advantage that we build in this is something that is going to be evolving, right? And that is something that we need to deeply keep in our belief system, that we would always evolve, we would always connect the dots, right? And the payoffs are going to be asymmetrical, right? And positive psychology is going to be playing a major role here, right? So positive psychology is not something that we would feel that we have, or something that we can develop over, just by pure will, right? But again, will itself is positive psychology, right? Will is, our way, will is our way of defending the negative thoughts, right? The negative talks that we have within ourselves, right? And as we know, 80% of the times we talk to ourselves, right? The mind inside talking to us, and the language is always negative, right? Because it only gives out SOSs, right? It gives out signals, right? Whenever you're going to be going down, or whenever it sees some sort of a threat to your comfort zone, it is just going to be giving you certain signals. And most of the times the self talks that we have, most of the times it is going to be negative, right? So having a will, right, having a sort of a power of controlling these thoughts is what we can call as positive, right? It's not that we believe in everything that is positive. We do not just believe that everything is going to be good, right? And of course, that's something that is good to develop over time, right? So where we believe that anything that happens to us has happened for good, right? And anything that is going to happen is going to be good as well, right? A good thought, to have when it comes to business, right? The pure will that we have, right, to negate these negativity. It could be noise, it could be the self-talks that we have, and to stick with the plan, right? That requires positive psychology, right? Positive psychology could be something, sounds like some sort of a self-help word, but it is mostly relates to our chemistry as well, right? Being positive has a lot of effects on the physical body as well, right? And it emits a lot of the good chemicals, and also it has a lot to do with other things as well. Positive psychology is proven to be working even in even medicines, right? So a lot of our members in the community, in the room as well, a lot of them, a major group of doctors in our community, right? And by the interactions that I've had with a few of them in these meetups, right, there is this amount of the willpower has a certain amount of healing that can be done to the body, right? There is a certain amount. It cannot just be wholly about the willpower, right? So it's called the placebo, right? Placebo has a role to play even in the health sector, health industry as well, right? And it has a lot to play in our way of fooling ourselves, right? Our way of fooling our inner self is placebo, where we can be positive, where we think and we behave, and some sort of the way along the way we become what we want, right? It always starts with the thinking, behaving, and then we almost become that, right? So positive psychology in terms of trading, explicitly we just need to believe in the systems, believe in the competitive advantage that we would build, and whatever we think right now, whatever the noise that you hear is just a perception, it's just a drop in this big universe, right? It's not going to affect your flow of things, right? And the asymmetric payoff is what is the truth, right? And we go to be getting paid reasonably well, right, in the top tier, if we are going to be stuck to what we are going to be doing, right? And again, good luck to all of you, right? Have a great week ahead, right? This is, I think, the first session after the turn of 2023, and also, right, the turn of the year, nothing much would change, right? It's just a change of the numbers, right? We do not need to think of this as this is a completely new phase where we need to come up with new things or new strategies, right? It's just that we just need to stick to the same hustle, right? We just need to stick. The game is the same, right? The name of the game is the same. Just the number has changed, right? So that we could give it a fresh start in terms of resetting our psychology and doing better things for us and for our families and for our business as well, right? So good luck. Have a great week ahead, right? So looking forward to meet you at some time next week as well. So good night and good luck. Thank you.